authors of books with titles such as Don't Mess With My Money, How to Be Your Own Financial Manager, which is a very important thing to do. Current contributors on CNN, former co-hosts of Dolans Unscripted, and authors of numerous personal finance books. Please join me in welcoming Ken and Daria Dolan.
Thank you, Peter, very much. And welcome home to you.
Thank you.
I always let him talk first so that I get the last word.
What else is there? Anyway, a little story. Daria and I, one of us or both of us, we've spoken across America, we've spoken across Canada, London, Paris, Zurich, Amsterdam, even Kuwait. And you'd expect us to say, or at least me to say, you know, it's a real pleasure to speak with you, because you'd say that to every place you go. It's a real pleasure to speak with you. It's a special pleasure for me. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which is not good. And as it turns out, it was a misdiagnosis. It turns out I had lymphoma cancer, which is very treatable. And I underwent chemotherapy, 6 treatments, and I became cancer-free. This is my first speech since, so I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. Real happy to be here. And that's the truth. The beauty, well, we're not here to sell anything, and you'll see us not speak from a lot of notes. We have little cards, we'll give you examples and stuff. But we're not financial planners. We're not here to sell books. We don't want you to meet us at the office. We have nothing to sell you. All we're trying to do is with Pam and the gang and Carolyn and all the nice people at the library are trying to do, and that's to make you aware of what's going on in the world of investing. Many small investors really don't understand the basics of investing and, you know, don't like to admit it. That's sort of bad for a couple of reasons. Number one, how do you know a good investment when you see it? We'll show you. And number two, how do you avoid trouble? Wall Street would like you to think it's like really, really complicated. And you're not, you know, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. What we're going to do here today is talk about general investing. We'll talk some specifics of some general specifics of investing, some things to avoid. If you have any questions as we go, and it's really important that you ask it then ask it. You're just not going to go any further if you don't get the answer. Otherwise, we're really famous for our question and answer period at the end. We did 5,000 radio and television shows. And I wasn't even aware we were heard here in Martinsburg, because we were on about 300 stations. And somebody would say, are you on in my town? I didn't know. We're on so many stations. And I didn't have any idea that so many people listen to us here. But anyway, at the end, we'll answer questions. We answered 60,000 questions on radio and television. So you're not going to stump us. Jack Bogle's an old friend of ours. He was the founder of the Vanguard funds. He's now the CEO, retired. And I think I can summarize the whole morning in a 12.5-second story. Jack Bogle started his career in Philadelphia as a runner for a brokerage firm. A runner basically is a guy or woman, I suppose, mostly guys at that point, who ran stocks and bonds back. Your firm sells it, his firm buys it, blah, 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 blah. Jack, when he was a young guy, worked with another runner named Ray, an older fellow, more experienced. And he took a liking to Jack. And he said, Jack, it's Jack Bogle, no less, young Jack, I'm going to tell you all you need to know about investing, very simply. And remember this. Quote, from Jack Bogle, from the runner, to Jack. Nobody knows nothing. That was his quote. And Jack said over the years that was proven right. because of the randomness of investing and the randomness of the market. Something that you're simply not going to beat. By being educated, you can benefit from it, but you're not going to beat it. And my last comment before Daria steps up here is a comment or a quote. Boy, it's so important too. Well, before I do that, because of the election, because of where we stand now, what a great time for Pamela and the gang at the library to invite us to speak. It's never been more important that you have financial resiliency. There are tough times ahead. I can tell you that's the way it is. Got nothing to do with Obama, nothing to do with Romney, nothing to do with any politician. We've got problems here in this country. Daria will talk a little bit, and I will too. So taking control has never, ever been more important. Ever been more important than it is this week, today, right now. Because if you think if anybody cares about your money as much as you do, I don't care if you got $1 or 10 million bucks. It doesn't matter. It's amountless. What you have is what you have. That's all you have, however much it is. My final comment, I never make final comments. I go on for hours. It's from a movie called A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. Conviction is the luxury of those on the sidelines. I can tell you do anything you want with your money. Not my money. Conviction is the luxury of those on the sidelines. Real estate, investing, cars, sodding your lawn, whatever. It's your money. Conviction is the luxury of those on the sidelines. Let's dive in. Daria's going to talk. I don't know what she's going to talk about.
He gives me all the fun stuff. All the bad stuff.
So, relax, everybody. Just relax.
Well, first off, I want to thank you all for having us here, especially Pamela, and dealing with her and Caroline. Carolyn has been an absolute pleasure here in Martinsburg.
And for the college for letting us do it.
And for the college for letting us do it, and for meeting you, Peter. And I hope you didn't freeze on too many an afternoon in the winter, trying to catch an hour of our show. We flew up here yesterday from Palm Beach County, Florida.
Please, don't bring it up.
I'll get to that in a minute, but you know, going through the airport, it's always such a pleasure. And you step up to the TSA area there, and now in the Palm Beach airport, they have one of those x-ray machines. It's right there. You're going nowhere. So you step inside, and you assume the pose. And let me tell you something, people. The last 2 words that came to my mind as I assumed the pose were freedom and liberty. But nonetheless, I'm happy to report that according to the last news report I got out of Florida, by noon today, about 45 minutes from now, we're still counting votes. Uno, dos, tres. You know, after you get through high school Spanish, 14, and then you're in trouble. Hi, 1, 2, 3. I mean, this is nuts. I admit we come out of a county that is famous for hanging Chads. In fact, nobody has named a child Chad since the 2000 election. And here we are on the Saturday after Election Day with no president in Florida. I have no representative because they're in a squabble over whether Alan West is going back to the House of Representatives or not. But I am convinced that in 45 minutes, we are going to be able to absolutely affirm that the 29 votes of the state of Florida have gone to the next president of the United States, George W. Bush.
We're a little behind.
You know, we have, I should get off this topic, but it's just such a thorn in my side. It's embarrassing to be from the state of Florida.
Will you get on with your stuff?
We have a county election supervisor. By the way, I will admit I voted against her in the primary in August because I saw this coming. Her name is Susan Butcher. It's rather appropriate, don't you think? One of the holdups in our county were the absentee ballots that came in. They had misprints, so the machine couldn't read them. So our county was literally hand copying 25,000 absentee ballots so that they could then put them into the machine. That was one of our hang-ups. Now, our appropriately named butcher of supervising elections, I ask you, what else do they have to do all year? You know, maybe a primary, one. An election, one. You couldn't have opened up the cartons from the printer to see if the ballots looked okay before election day? I don't know what I'm missing. But let's get on to the effects of the election. And I'm going to say something before I start talking about the little bit of good news and the potential bad news that's out there. And I've never said this in 25 years of radio, television, and speaking, because I never needed to say it before. But I'm going to beg each and every one of you to understand that where I'm coming from has nothing to do with red states, has nothing to do with blue states. It has to do with the green in your wallet. And that knows no politics, because you can get broke by a Republican and you can get broke by a Democrat. It's your green that matters to us. So please don't take any of this as bias against one party or the other. And I really, it pains me to have to say that in this day and age, but I feel it's a necessary prerequisite. Because facts are stubborn things, you know? And in finance, that's really, at the end of the day, all you've got. You know, your dollars in your pocket, your investment in a mutual fund, have no political inclination one way or the other. They just move on what's happening. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So please don't take any political inference in anything I may have to say. Let's start with business. I'm happy to see around here, in just the short time that we've been here, that there is some employment opportunities coming in. That's very exciting, because we're still down in Florida, where we're seeing a lot of for lease going out of business, still foreclosures, still a soft real estate market. So in this area, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Because it's exciting to see, for example, a sign on Olive Garden this morning, hiring now. You can apply online.
Macy's.
You were talking about Macy's over here. That is, I mean, this is all exciting. But for general business in the country, it's going to be a tough slog. Because it doesn't look like we're going to have a lessening of too many regulations. And regulations, to one degree or another, cost businesses money. Now, some of them are absolutely necessary. But it's unfortunate that they can't do studies in DC talking about what the cost of a regulation would be before they put it into effect. So businesses are still going to have to contend with the possibility that they're going to run afoul of something and have to spend some money to fix it. The good news is there could, sometime down the road, next year, be a drop in the corporate tax structure. Even the president is admitting that he would like to see changes to the tax code. And if we could get the corporate rates down from 35% to 25%, that would go a whole long way in helping businesses start to hire again. The bad news is, if they hold to the revenue increase, I love that, don't you? Just say you want to raise taxes. Do we need to talk revenue? You want tax dollars. If they are going to increase taxes on those earning $200,000 a year, couples earning $250,000 a year or more, there is going to be blowback on some small businesses, not all, but some small businesses, because they file as individuals under an S corporation rating, will get hit with the possibility of 39.6% tax. Now, if they're paying that, That's another whatever percent more than that they were paying that could have gone to hire another employee and help grow their business. So that will have an effect. It may not be as big as the Republicans would like you to have thought before the election, but there are numerous small businesses that do well enough, thank God, that they earn, the individual owner of that business and founder of that business does earn more than $250,000 a year. Businesses are also going to find the increased costs of Obamacare, and that will also, unfortunately, act as an impediment against hiring, which is why probably we should all hope that they do get a corporate tax cut and maybe hold S-corporation taxes for the corporation itself, find another way that they can, individuals that own small businesses can file their taxes without having to pay a full bore 39.6% ordinary tax income. Now the good news is we've seen better unemployment numbers. Certainly in this area you've got to be seeing it because I'm seeing job opportunities. If we can start growing that more and more and more, we're going to see increased consumerism. If we see people not afraid to go to the store and buy things, we're going to see manufacturers need to hire more people. That is a potential good piece of news on the horizon. We're seeing an improvement in housing and autos. We're seeing more housing starts after a very bad few years. Those are all good, as I think they said a few years ago, green shoots in the economy. Of course, the green shoots they were talking about then have long since died, but we'll take any green shoots at this point. But let's talk about the clouds that are on the horizon, or, as I like to think of them, the potential four horsemen of the apocalypse. If you're in Greece, it's the four horsemen of the Acropolis.
Don't depress everybody.
You can't get away from it, folks. You hear it all the time, fiscal cliff. You know, and it amazes me. I'm surprised that you can still find canned goods in Washington, D.C., considering all the cans that Congress and the Senate have kicked down the road over the past several years. But the fact of the matter is, if this bickering continues, and we go into the new year facing $600 billion in tax increases and spending cuts, which is the exact nature of the fiscal cliff. We lose the Bush tax cuts and we cut spending, then you're going to see a very likely cut to our gross domestic product of as much as 3%. Well, our GDP, our gross domestic product, has grown this past year at a rate of 2%. That's as the real rate, 2%. Or you see, when they want you to feel better about it, they put the nominal rate in the newspaper. And all nominal rate means is you take the actual rate, the real rate of 2%, you add whatever they calculate inflation is right now, which they're saying, of course, they don't go to the grocery store, obviously. They're saying inflation is 2%, so you get a nominal rate of 4%. Well, if we get a fiscal cliff ultimatum here, because neither side will come to the table and finally sit down and do something, most economists and the General Accounting Office are expecting that that would cut 3% of growth off our gross domestic product. Well, using the real rate of 2%, they're not talking an inflationary 3%, they're talking a real rate of a cut of 3%. Now you're at what? Last time I took math, you subtract 3 from 2 and you get a -1. Well, if you get a -1% in our gross domestic product, guess what we're back in, ladies and gentlemen? We're back in recession. Something will be done. If for no other reason than I don't think these guys and gals can ever go home to their districts again if they don't come to some sort of agreement. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't think it's going to solve the problem. I hope that they don't decide, you know what, there's not enough time between now and the end of the year on January 1 when these kick in, so let's just put it off until the first of the year, let it happen, because if it happens, it's going to be so much more difficult to unwind, even if they come to some fantastic agreement, because business isn't going to hire. Christmas isn't going to be particularly pretty. People won't know what the heck is coming. So they're going to have to do something. I'm hoping that even if they do some sort of small agreement now, and then a bigger one, because there are so many other problems with this. Somebody's going to get hit with higher taxes, whether it's January 1 or June 6th of next year. Somebody is going to get hit with higher taxes. You can't spend what they're spending and not raise revenue. On the other side of the coin, they shouldn't be spending what they're spending because they're spending more than the revenue that they're taking in. It would be like you deficit spending on your credit cards in perpetuity and expecting that somehow or other the magic leprechaun's going to come down from the sky and drop a pot of gold in front of you to get you out of your fiscal wreck. So the fact of the matter is we need adults in Washington. I don't know, I think you may have one. I don't know what we've got coming out of Florida. Cloud number 2, earnings on Wall Street. We've had a very ugly quarter, and you can see that in the trim that's taken place on the Standard & Poor's 500 and the Dow Jones 30. There's a good possibility of another quarter of earnings that are going to be less than anticipated. We just saw day before yesterday, McDonald's, which I mean stands for probably the entire global economy with all of their outlets around the world, had its first monthly loss in years and years and years. Their earnings went down last month from the month before.
9 years.
9 years differential, the last time that happened. This does not bode well for here. It certainly doesn't bode well for the rest of the world. And since we've decided that we wanted a new world order of a global economy, or as an economist, a friend of mine refers to it all the time, a new world odor, we're all in it together, like it or not. So if the world is not doing well, then it's going to be that much more difficult for us to do well individually, since we're tying ourselves more and more to the others. The European crisis is a drag and will continue to be a drag on our exports, and I'm going to tell you why Europe is so serious for you, and what you invest in, and what happens to our economy. Number one, as I just said, that global economy. We're all in it together. Europe is not a huge buyer of our exports, but 17%, if they stop buying even 5% of that, doesn't bode manufacturing in this and exporting in this country very well. Greece, I mean, it's a joke. The riots, the austerity budgets, not one of which has even though if they've been enacted, has been put into place. And you've got the bureaucrats in Europe all running around like, we can't let them go, we can't let them go, we can't let them go. But nobody wants to pay for them. Spain, 25% unemployment. 25% unemployment. You wonder why you're seeing people marching in the streets? They've got busted banks in Spain. You know, and this is all the fault of politicians, because the politicians just egg them on. Yeah, make the economy look good. Go ahead, build more. Give more loans to people who can't, because they went through the same kind of real estate bust we did here. They allowed themselves to overbuild, and they exacerbated their employment problem. And if you're a rabid environmentalist, you're not going to want to hear this fact, but the fact of the matter is, they put in tons and tons of green jobs into Spain. But for every one green job that the Spanish government created, they lost 2 other jobs. Hence, 25% unemployment. Germany, by the way, has given up on any more of their solar, windmill projects whatsoever, because they realize It's a black hole that a lot of tax dollars and revenue go into that isn't producing what they need it to produce. They totally pull back on it.
Including here too.
Yeah. Then Italy. Well, I could talk reams about Italy because you may not know it, but I am now a dual citizen. Yeah, I can't quite pick good governments, I guess. I don't know. Just what I need. I said to him, well, if I don't like the results of the election, we can move to Italy. The only good news there is you eat better. The government's just as screwed up, but you do eat better. But let me tell you about Italy, because I know that very intimately. And it's a word of caution for the U.S. One of the big problems, their banks are really pretty stable because Italians are great savers. You might call them cheap, but they're great savers. But you'd be a better saver too, because every good that you buy over there comes with a value-added tax of 21%. So when you see a pair of shoes over there, it's 21% more than even sometimes what it gets exported to this country for. So you'd be putting your money in the bank too. You wouldn't be putting it on your back. Their car industry has dropped dead. Well, let's take a look at the gasoline prices in Europe. And let me tell you, I spent a lot of time in Italy. You recycle everything in Italy. We can't find an incandescent light bulb in Italy. They're all the new energy efficient, which brings up, since I'm in a cold state, maybe you can explain to dumb little me why the EPA is clamping down on coal enterprises because of mercury emissions and forcing all of us to buy energy efficient light bulbs that are full of, wait for it, mercury. Like, do you trust your neighbors to recycle these things properly? We can't get them in my building to get rid of the stupid newspapers in the right bins.
And Pamela Coyle said, there's 15 steps on
if you
throwing
break
them
one.
away.
Oh, heaven help us. You break it in your house?
Yeah. Move out.
Move out. Gasoline in Italy. $2, it's now €2 a liter. There are almost 4 liters that make up a gallon. At $1.30 to the euro, you're looking at $10.40 for a gallon of gas, and we're complaining?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm from Norway, and it's $13 a gallon in Norway. Right now.
I didn't hear what you said.
He's from Norway, $13 a gallon.
Wow.
It all comes down to this bureaucracy.
Unbelievable.
Europe, to me, is the well, Norway, at least you're smart enough, you stayed out of the EU. You look at Brussels, the Brussels is a mini United Nations. A whole bunch of people on the government tit. A bunch of bureaucrats who scamper around, and trust me, I know a little bit about the UN. I worked there one summer. It was really eye-opening. They're all there. Half of them haven't been elected by the people of their country, and they are there to do nothing more than try to continue to foster an idea that when you think about it, why should it work? You've got the 17 members of the European Union, well, no, I take that back, 2 of which speak the same language, Austria and Germany. Now, they're all coming together for one United States of Europe. And they don't speak the same language. How is this going to work? It would be like West Virginia and Virginia having 2 different languages. But I mean, like, really different. Like, you don't even have a clue what the other one is saying. You know, think about that. You're going to unite, but you need to have translators when you get together. Brussels, the seat of the European Union. They just got a government, and they're having a fight between those that speak the Flemish and those that speak the French. So if the seat of your so-called union can't get along there, how do you expect all these countries to work together, especially when you get the hardworking northern countries of Europe that produce and pay the taxes that are now being told, you need to ante up a little bit more to give to the Greeks? Really? There are two more clouds. I'm going to run through them very quickly. One is what's going on in Iran, in Syria, in the Middle East. I lost my third one. Oh, no, I did. No, I'm on my fourth one. Sorry. I am on my fourth one. I talked about the earnings on Wall Street. Don't expect great guns on the next earnings report. It created the volatility that you've seen in the market this quarter. It's going to create at least as much volatility next quarter because nobody knows what the state of the economy is going to be by the 1st of January. And the other X factor is what's going on in the Middle East. There is an instability there that risks being spilled out all over the Middle East. You've got Syria, it's already implicated Turkey into what's going on in Syria, where Turkey is having to defend its border. You've got Iran that just shot down or tried to shoot down one of our drones that is trying to continue to aid the Syrian government and Assad. It's a mouthful for me. And all of this is transpiring, which could very possibly put the world on the brink of another war. And wars cost money, as we all well know in this country. And can we afford to be involved in that? So these are the clouds that are out there. These are the reasons why I think that, and we'll talk about investments in a few minutes, but these are the reasons why I think it is imperative that you take a good hard look at where your money is placed and be prepared, if not ready right now, to move to safer places than the stock market.
Thanks, Daria. Yeah, Daria's going to bring it closer to home and talk about some general areas when I get through. I want to do a little quick financial health checkup. It'll sound like I'm lecturing to you, but I don't mean to. It'll just give you a couple of ideas what you should be doing if you didn't. I'm also going to talk about, after Daria talks investing, I'm going to talk about some retirement mistakes to avoid, no matter how old you are, and how to find a good financial planner. And we'll talk about it. First thing is, I know you don't like to talk about this because, well, maybe you don't have a lot of assets, but do you have a will? 33% of America does not have a will because many people simply don't want to talk about it. I don't know the rules in West Virginia, but in many states, if you don't have a will, the state will make it up for you. And so if you don't want your wayward cousin to get part of your assets or whatever, then you're in trouble, because obviously many states who dictate your will, if you don't have one, will tell your estate how it's going to be split. Yes, sir.
I had a question about that. I have a will, but does it have to be registered somewhere, or do I just?
You have to speak. Let me stop by saying to everybody, chemo has affected my hearing,
Okay.
and I don't hear very well yet. You said, does it have to be written? Start again.
I have a will.
Yeah.
But it's tucked away in a safe. Do
Yeah.
I have to get it registered somewhere? Or,
No, Virginia, he's saying he's got a will, it's in a safe, which is fine. You need a backup copy.
Okay.
Very often you'll have the original with an attorney and they're safe. If something should happen to you, if something should happen to the law firm, which has happened, you'd have a backup will. That's perfectly fine. Written is good, but always with a backup.
Make sure someone knows where it is.
Right, okay.
Who's talking?
Right out of my
I
mouth.
said, make sure somebody knows where it is.
Well said. Well said. We've had, oh my gosh, which leads me to the second one, which is insurance. Great point. We had the question many, many times, and we did not have a great answer for it. One of the few questions we didn't hit into the cheap seats, and that is, when a relative of mine died, I think they had an insurance policy, but we can't find it. We can't find it. And that's why we recommend that it's a pain to do. But you should have a document for your kids or your loved ones. Who the lawyer is, who the doctor is, hospital records, where's the will, where are the insurance policies? Because there is no the American Council of Life Insurance used to have a service where they're for $25 or something, they send an email out to every insurance company in the globe. I don't think they do that anymore. They stopped it years ago. But thank you. That leads me to the second one, life insurance. Oh boy, let's talk about that. We believe life insurance, and this goes, by the way, we've given permission for the first time on all of our speaking engagements for this to go on Facebook. And so this will be available on Facebook. So when I say that is because we'll get hate letters from insurance. YouTube and Facebook.
No, YouTube.
Just YouTube?
Just YouTube. I don't know.
Whatever.
Whatever.
My point is, I'm going to get hate mail from insurance companies when I tell you this. I love insurance. I love insurance, but here's why I love it, in both of us. For death protection, number one, and estate planning, number two. Not for investing. Okay, I'm going to buy an insurance policy, and the money's going to grow, and then I'll have it for retirement. Insurance companies are among the worst investors in the history of investingdom. Love insurance. For many young people like yourself, young lady, term insurance. I have nothing against permanent insurance, a part of the portfolio, but you don't buy it for investment, you buy it for insurance for your loved ones. End of discussion. We do a special 3-hour seminar on estate planning only. That's all we talk about. And I'm not going to talk about the uses of insurance in estate planning, but I will tell you this. If you're an estate planning attorney, or if you have a wills and a trust attorney, talk about the uses of insurance in estate planning. Spectacular. If you're young enough, and we've got various crowds here, be sure to use your flexible spending accounts. Some of you have retired already. We'll talk to you in a minute. Those of you who are still working, be sure to use flexible spending. It's a great, great tax thing, and that basically is a bunch of money put aside that you can use for medical. Use it for sure. If you're lucky enough to have a few extra bucks, I just want you to know that you can give this year up to $13,000 to anybody. Most people don't know that. It's tax-free. It's tax-free to, it is not a tax benefit to you, except, we'll use the whole amount, $13,000 comes out of your taxable estate, I suppose. It's non-taxable to the person you give it to, except how? How they invest it. They put it in a CD, the interest is taxable, but the $13,000 is not. Some great strategies, and we can discuss it over a Coke, I guess, later, on 529 plans and how to gift money into a 529 if you have grandkids or kids going to college. We can talk about it. Tax rates, Daria will talk a little bit more about tax rates. If the tax rates, if the Bush cuts are not...
I won't.
All right, okay.
Taxes.
Taxes are going up, period. And that's why we're going to talk, Daria will talk in a minute about investing. Part of it will be municipal bonds, maybe. But taxes are going up. And as I said a half an hour ago, it's never been more important that you have fiscal responsibility and flexibility. And that only comes from understanding this stuff. So there's a little financial checkup with a special emphasis on your will. Will or trust or both. If you get sick and you're a surviving spouse, who's going to tell people how to take care of you? Medical power of attorney. If you're unable to take care of your finances, because maybe your husband's not good at it, or maybe he's deceased, or whatever, financial power of attorney. Use this stuff. Thank you. I have my own personal prompter. A lot of our comments, and many of our comments, don't come from books. Obviously, we're from Wall Street, we're from the money, we're from the world of finance. A lot of our concerns and a lot of our counsel comes from people who have really made big mistakes. As Peter remembers from listening to the radio, and apparently a lot of you did too. A lot of what we say comes from the trouble people have gotten into by not finding an insurance policy, by being in a hospital with nobody to tell the doctor what to do, etc., etc. Before I talk about retirement mistakes to avoid, no matter even if you're young, before I talk about that and how to find a financial planner, I was going to talk much more specific on investing. We're as interested in you understanding the alternatives and then making the choice yourself. We're not here to tell you how to invest or what to invest in, but to be aware of what's available. Wills and trusts.
Okay, let's run through some.
You're going to spill that water if we're here long enough, I swear you
The
are.
top is on. If it hits the floor, it's fine.
Don't mix your cards with my cards. I love her to death. The only regret I have with this woman, we worked together every day on a personal note for 25 years. Husband and wife lived our life, our marriage, in the media. She's the secret to our success. I invented the Dolans. I said, I want a husband and wife to do this back in 1985, and everybody in radio and television we spoke to said, okay, husband and wife, forget it. 5,000 shows later, here we are. But my final comment is, the only regret I have with this woman is I didn't ask her to marry me sooner. Period. That's the truth.
Pay attention to what's going on in the country, in Washington with the budget discussions, in Europe. Try and read a little bit of the Wall Street Journal or Investors Business Daily. Because if you don't watch what's going on outside of Martinsburg, you're going to make investment mistakes over, you'll still make them, we all do. But you'll make fewer because you can see the big picture. When you see that McDonald's is under attack earnings-wise month over month, it makes you start thinking about, you know what? That guy that sold me that mutual fund or those stocks that said buy and hold forever, he's wrong. Because I'm here to tell you folks, buy and hold is dead. You cannot afford to buy something for the long haul and forget about it anymore. There are no widows and orphan stocks. If you're going to participate, and you're going to do it with individual stocks, then you must be vigilant. If you don't want that onus on your shoulders in this environment, look at only certain kinds of mutual funds. Stay away from the index funds. I know they've been winners for a long time. But let's face it, if they don't get all of this together, I think this is dead again. I'm talking into nothing here. I don't know why this keeps
I'm hearing you
Hold
fine
on.
on this. We hear you fine.
You might get electrocuted, but be careful. Try that.
Hello? You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? You're fine?
Yeah.
He always said I had a big mouth. Okay. If you don't have the discipline to keep apprised of what's going on with the individual stocks that you think you'd like to own, in this environment, take a look at mutual funds, two kinds on the stock side. First kind, a mutual fund of stocks in which the portfolio manager can go to cash and can go to almost all cash if he or she feels that the time is too volatile to remain invested in stocks. I cannot make specific recommendations to you, but talk to your broker about the PIMCO family. There's a few funds in there.
Daria, let me just say something. As you were alluding to, some mutual fund managers are stuck with the edict that they must stay fully invested all the time. Fully invested.
Or if you want to have more of a mix of something in there, take a look at what are called asset allocation funds. Because in asset allocation funds, they have the right by the charter of the fund to go into stocks or bonds or interest-bearing accounts, etc. Things that will give you a good deal more protection than I'm going for the gold with that growth mutual fund, and I'm going with an aggressive growth. So take a good look at that. If you want to look at individual stocks, take a look at food companies. All the things that people are still going to need even if we go to you-know-where in a handbasket. Take a look at health care, not health insurers, because Obamacare will do well by the health care industries, the hospitals, etc., not the insurance companies. And they sold off the other day, the day after the election. Insurance companies, health insurers were down. Take a look. I don't know what you think of this, but it's going to do well, folks. alcohol makers.
I'm in.
And between now and the end of the year, and possibly into the first quarter, gun manufacturers like Smith & Wesson.
Yeah, there was a spike up in Smith & Wesson just last week.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
And there's a spike up in gun sales around the country because everybody's expecting the worst.
Guns and alcohol.
Yeah, guns and alcohol. What could possibly go wrong?
That's the American way.
Yeah. And take a look at water companies. Think about this, folks. We're all complaining, I know down by us, we're paying almost $4 a gallon. I saw $3.69 down here. I wanted to go back, get my car, drive up and buy gas. $4 a gallon. And we're complaining, and oh my gosh, and we can't afford this, and blah, blah, blah. But go buy a 16-ounce bottle of water. This isn't 16-ounce, but go buy one of these in 16-ounce. $1, right? 16 ounces. Do you know how much 16 ounces really is? It's a pint, right? Do you know how many pints are in a gallon?
12.
8.
So we will gladly, all day long, spend $8 on a gallon of water and moan and complain like crazy when we go buy $4 gas. Buy water companies. And buy oil and gas. I don't care whether this administration wants to get rid of all the oil companies, etc. Take a tip from Hurricane Sandy. When that hurricane came through and decimated the coast of New Jersey and decimated the Long Island, where I was originally from, the coast of Long Island, and the coast of Connecticut, and the city of New York, did you hear anybody screaming for a wind turbine? No, they were looking for the old greasy darn generators. They wanted diesel fuel, they wanted car fuel, they wanted this, that, and the other thing. We cannot live in this country without oil and gas producers. But I'm sorry to say this in a coal state, but stay away from the coal manufacturers. They got cremated the other day because there will be a continued war on coal in this country. Why they won't at least let us export it to Europe is beyond me, but what do I know? Dividend stocks, only in a tax-deferred retirement account. They sold off like crazy the other day because guess what happens with the new tax laws? Dividends are going to go up to ordinary income unless they come to some other sort of ordinary income tax rates. So if you're in a 35% rate, you're going to pay 35% on a dividend. Yes, sir.
So put it in an IRA? Is that
Put it in an IRA.
Can't you-
And to be perfectly honest, I would wait to be buying any dividend stocks until the worst of it gets swept out now, because there are people that are just now saying, oh my gosh, they're going to increase the taxes on dividends. I don't want to be paying my normal income tax rate for a dividend that I used to pay 15% on. I'm not going to hold the stocks anymore.
Daria, what is your name?
Uwe Johansson.
No, okay, I was going to say, you make a good point. Not just IRAs, 401k, 403b, any, what they call it.
Yeah, in a
qualified
retirement,
plan.
any
In a retirement.
qualified retirement.
Yeah, not just
account.
an IRA.
But don't be holding on to them because we got enough trouble trying to get them to get a budget going. We've gone 4 years now almost without a budget out of this bunch in DC. And I say bunch, I mean them all. I mean, for my money, you want to know my politics? I think now at the end of the day, I think Ron Paul's a heck of a man. Bonds. Be very careful of bonds. They've been the only place to be when the market was going like this. But let's face it, folks, we can't get these rates any lower. They're going to have to start going up. And what happens to the value of a bond? Let's say you pay $100 for a bond, and it's paying you 1.5%. Now you can buy bonds paying You can't, but let's say you could. 2.5%. What's going to happen to that $100 bond you bought that's only paying 1.5%?
Goes down in value.
Goes down in value. And the longer term the bond is, the quicker and harder it goes down in value. Because if you can see this card, when I wave this card up and down, assuming the movement of interest rates, up and down and up and down, which part of this card moves more? The part close to my hand or the part furthest away? Furthest away, right? That's your long-term bond out there. You want volatility in your portfolio? Buy long-term bonds. You want less volatility in a portfolio? Buy short to medium-term bonds. Because the shorter term means that you're going to be getting paid back again, hopefully. You're going to be paid back again and be able to go capture a better rate if rates go up. Whereas if you're in a 20, 30-year bond, I hope your heirs enjoy it. We are going to get inflation, folks. I can't set my watch to it because we've got it now and everybody's lying about it. I mean, try the food store. And the results of the drought out in the Midwest haven't even been felt yet. So wait until next year, early next year, when you start going for beef or corn or whatever, and you start seeing those prices. We've got inflation. The only reason it doesn't register in the government is because it only counts all other inflationary things except food and energy. Well, I don't know about you, but I could live without the iPad. I need some food. But that's the way they calculate inflation in this country. It's going to come back to bite us. You can't keep printing money that has nothing backing it and have good things happen to a country. We're on QE3 now. We've been through 1. We've been through 2. This one isn't going away, according to the Federal Reserve Chairman. And the thing that will chase it away is rampant, and I pray, dear God, not hyperinflation like we saw in Germany before World War II. But it could happen at the rate that we're making fake money. Muni bonds. Please, I beg of you, be careful.
Municipal bonds.
Sorry, municipal bonds. These are tax-free bonds. I caution you on these for 2 reasons. Even if they manage to tax the wealthy, those earning, I hate the millionaires and billionaires, because you tell me if your $250,000 qualifies you as a billionaire, folks. But anyway, $250,000 or more. My fear is that one of the ways they may get a little bit more out of this group is to start the taxation of municipal bond interest, which till now has always been tax-free. So I worry about that, which would decimate the market. But more than the possible taxation going down the road of municipal bonds is my fear of the states of municipalities in this country. You just look over to California or over to the Chicago area, and you've seen some high-profile bankruptcies, restructurings, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I mean, folks, these municipalities have big, big problems, and they can't tax the people more because the people don't have it. They've got problems with pensions for public workers. They've got problems for health care for public workers. They've got problems with public projects that they built that aren't paying off. And if they're going to be making municipal bond interest payments to you, you've got to wonder at what point do they finally say we can't pay you anymore and default. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's ugly. We saw it in Orange County, California a number of years ago. We saw it up in Washington State with the Whoops bonds, which were the Washington State Power bonds. It does happen. It makes me nervous. There is only one kind of municipal bond I would recommend anybody looking for tax relief to buy, and that is one that is a pre-refunded municipal bond. Pre-refunded means that the money is already sitting in a secure account to pay bondholders principal and interest. Interest as it goes along and principal when the bond matures. For that, you give up some yield. But I'd rather be safe than sorry every single time. Particularly with bonds like this, because you don't intend to be buying and selling them on a day-to-day type of basis. Beware of your banks. Quick story, and then I'll let Ken go on. Beware of your banks. I take my mother one day. She had CDs coming due, and she needed to renew the CDs. My mother was at that point 85. She just turned 86. I take her to the bank. We're going to meet with the nice young man that always helps me when I'm here. Okay, Mom, terrific. We would sit down in his office. I ask him what the CD rates are. He tells me my eyes fall out of my head. They're so awful, awful, awful. He says, but I have a suggestion for your mother. A guaranteed bond. I said, oh, really? What are we talking about? And he shows me guaranteed corporate bonds. There is no such animal. I looked at him, I said, these are not guaranteed. Yes, they are. They're guaranteed by the corporation. I said, can I remind you of Enron? Can I remind you of a whole host of other guaranteed bonds? And then I looked at him and I said, I'm going to tell you something. And I won't tell on you. I said, but this is my business. And I said, there is no such thing as a guaranteed corporate bond. By the way, he's showing her triple B bonds. Short term, I'll grant you that, but triple B, not triple A, folks. I said, you can't say that. I said, that is illegal for you to say that. And I know that because I was licensed just the same as you. So I said, you're going to get yourself in trouble, lose your license, and lose your livelihood if you keep telling women like my mother, or gentlemen like the one sitting out there waiting to come in here next, that you're going to put them in a guaranteed corporate bond. There ain't no such thing, and you better knock it off right now. You try it again, and I will be back to your manager. The guy was like, who is this woman? Two more, I'm sorry, two more quick things. Get her home safe. Put cash in it. Because you see what happens when storms happen? There were people that finally, when the grocery stores opened, the grocery stores couldn't sell them food because they didn't have any cash. Then they could only do cash because they had no electricity for the machines to take credit. Keep some cash in your house. I'm not insinuating we're going to have, and then buy a Smith & Wesson. I'm not insinuating that, you know, all the banks are going to fail, but there again, better safe than sorry in an emergency. Also, at $1,600 to $16.25 an ounce, gold will be a buy. It's now at $1,700. I would hold off a little bit, but you can do it. And I'm not saying you put everything you got into gold, but I own gold, I own silver. If you can't afford gold, take a look at silver, and you should have some, and you can do it in a mutual fund, but in that case, buy a no-load mutual fund, one that won't charge you a fee to get in, because these precious metals are very volatile, and you're going to have a lot of volatility. You don't want to have to pay for the privilege of it. No-load mutual fund, an exchange-traded fund that trades in gold or silver or both. Vanguard has a very good, by the way, no-load mutual fund. Or physical gold. If you get that safe, you may want to investigate buying some silver coins. But don't be going for these, buying them for the antiquity of them, because unless you know it, you're going to get screwed.
Some of these may not apply to some of our older people, although I think I'm probably one of the oldest people here. I'll be 70 in January. Don't miss out on employer matching if you have a chance to do that. You're seeing firms that are cutting back on it and eliminating it. If you can do it, it's the greatest happy tax, I use the word rip-off, I don't mean that, advantage, where in fact it takes right off the top of your taxable income. It's only taxed when it comes out. by the way, even if you're retired, a lot of rip-offs in the fees in these plans. Check the fees in your plan, and I'm not kidding you. You go from 0.5% to 1.5%. Okay, maybe you're going to make 6% in a year, or 5%, or 8%, minus the fee. So check the fee in your plan. We take it for granted. It's a fee. It's a fee. I got to pay. It's a fee.
Gains are ephemeral, fees are forever.
All right, here's one you're going to hate me. I don't care. Don't put your kids before your retirement. I cannot tell you how many times people have said, we're really, really, really hurting. We're about to retire or just retired. And my kids couldn't pay the college tuition for my grandkids, so I paid it. I heard this one 100 times. My son just graduated from dental school, and he needs equipment. Who doesn't love their kids? We have one kid, one daughter, who after being married for 10 years, career girl, just told us a month ago that she's expecting. So at the grand old age of me, we'll have our first grandchild. That's a hard one. Here's another one, a hard one. Don't depend that your kids are going to take care of you. Now you think, like I just make these up, right? Many calls. Yeah, we gave our kid, our dentist kid, a lot of money and our retirement money, but he's a doctor, he's a dentist, he's a lawyer, she's a thing, she's an IT expert, and they just went out of business. Or just lost their job. Money's gone. Don't assume they can take care of you. You want to talk long-term care insurance? We can do it over soda. Underestimating how much money you're going to need in retirement. The old chestnut, 70% of what you made before you retired is the old chestnut, not working anymore. Those of you who are retired may know that already. It costs more to live in retirement than it used to. So don't underestimate that. And the final one, which we hear all the time, it's a monster. I'm retired or about to retire. I have a certain amount of money. I lost a lot of money in the market in the last 2 or 3 years, but I'm going to make it up fast. Taking unreasonable risk. We call it catch-up. Taking too much risk. We lost $2 trillion in investing in the last 2 or 3 years in our qualified accounts. Never mind house prices, forget that. So taking too much risk. Daria's going to talk about some money changes coming next year, then I'm going to finish with how to find a financial planner. It's not as hard as you think. I'm going to give you the questions to ask and the answers that you want to hear. If you don't get the answers, highway.
I'll make these very quickly. First off, if you still work, you're going to take home a little bit less on January 1st because Social Security taxes are going to go back up that 2% that you haven't been paying for the past 2 years. So since your salary isn't going up, you better plan on the fact that you're going to be taking even 2% less home because it's coming out again, folks. They can't come to an agreement on taxes and deficit spending. You think they're going to get your Social Security tax reinstated for another go-around for another year? Not to mention the fact Social Security can't afford to have that loss of 2% for another year.
And it's not going out of business. Sorry to hear
if you sell your primary residence next year to help pay for Obamacare, 3.6% will be the capital gains tax on the sale of a primary residence. So plan for that one too. I didn't mention before, real estate is starting to perk up as another good investment. And if you have been waiting to buy a house or are looking to buy a house, Do it now. You got the cheapest money you're ever going to have. Just beware of the rosy estimates of what capital appreciation will be on houses next year. For example, the other day, the National Association of Realtors, God love them. I mean, I understand you're in the business, but they said next year, 7.6% increase in housing prices. Plan on 3%. If you add the inflationary effect of 2%, maybe it'll be 5%, but you're not getting 7.6%. I don't care who you are and I don't care where you are, but by all means, real estate. There's going to be a tax on businesses, and this is important for people that are looking maybe for part-time work. Maybe you're in retirement, but you're not really thrilled that you're in retirement. For businesses with 50 or more employees, there will be a $2,000 tax if they have no health care for those employees to fund Obamacare. The better one, 50 or more employees, if you have a little bit of insurance, you're trying to do your best to help your employees, and there's sparse benefits, you're going to get taxed $3,000. Go figure. $2,000 for none, $3,000 for some. It makes no sense at all. But already, we're seeing places like Darden restaurants and hotel chains, etc., talk about knocking back employees' hours to get them below that 30-hour a week, to get them below the need for insurance, to get them off the hook for penalties regarding health care and Obamacare. Looking for jobs in retail, hotel, motel, restaurants, senior citizens, it's going to be prime for you, because if you've got Social Security benefits, maybe a little pension, and you're looking for a little something to do, maybe even it isn't for the money, but to get you out of the house, you're a perfect candidate, because young people need more than part-time work. So they may take it. More than likely, they're going to try to hold out for full-time work. So that's going to be a change. Estate and gift taxes. Well, we went from no estate taxes in 2010 to taxes on $5.12 million this year, and next year you can only pass to your heirs without having any estate taxes, $1 million again. We've gone total round robin. The amount goes down. The $13,000 a year annual gift amount is set to drop as well. Number that you need to pay attention to, $224 billion. What is that? That is the number between now and the end of the debt ceiling, and another round of fights for them all to entertain themselves with in Washington. Because along with the fiscal cliff, we're fast approaching the debt ceiling, and they're going to have to do something there too. Keep an eye on that. What you're going to see, I can almost bank on this for you for next year. They'll get, yelling is not helping. They'll get some sort of tax on the wealthy, I think, initially. I think the Republicans will finally cave on that. But I'm telling you, that is not the end of the story, folks, and going forward from there, it's going to be a tax on each and every one of you. It's the only way the numbers make sense. You can't get blood from a stone. You can't get enough money if you took 100% of wealthy people's money to pay off the mess that we're in. And they're coming for you, so be ready for it.
Thanks, Daria. Before we take Q&A, I want to cover two quick topics that they're important, but I think I can do it quickly. And that is how to pick a stock. Duh. I think it's easy. How to pick a financial planner. I'm going to do 5 minutes on each. But before I do that, I want to do a minute on something. Ordinarily, I would take more time, but we've covered a lot of spot here. And that is talk about scams. I'm going to do it in a minute. And these are from real calls, real people we've met and we've counseled. There is no money in Nigeria for you. I don't care what the letter says, there isn't any. Number one. Number two, there is no reason ever to give your Social Security number to anybody for any reason. Not on your checks, nowhere. Number three, if you didn't enter something, you didn't win anything. And number 4, there are no free or very inexpensive vacations. Peter mentioned Peter Lynch. Peter Lynch ran the most popular and successful mutual fund maybe ever, but certainly one of the best. Peter's been a friend of ours for 30 years. College classmate of mine. I went to Boston College. On our show many, many times. And if there was liquor being served here, I'd tell you a real Peter Lynch story. It was really wacky. But Peter Lynch said something I'll never forget. Great guy. One Up on Wall Street's his book. Tremendous. Still good. Pick a company, a stock of a company that can be run by an idiot, because sooner or later an idiot's going to run it. A couple of questions to ask the broker or your financial planner. We're going to talk about how to find that person. How does it fit in with my stated investment objectives? Conservative, okay, then I don't want to buy a commodity stock. How does it fit in with me? Is it a leader in its field, or has it the potential to be the leader in its field? What is the downside if it doesn't work out the way we thought? What's the downside? What effect will the economy and consumer buying habits have on my stock if we buy it? Or this mutual fund of stocks if I buy the mutual fund? What have you based your projections on? It's going to do X, Y, Z because that's why it's going to go up. Well, okay. Where did you get those numbers? And the question that'll blow a financial planner or a broker's mind, I hope there's one here. We have nothing against them at all. So when do I sell? Barron's did a study many years ago. And I'll remember as best I can. On Wall Street in a given year, there are 1,095 buy recommendations and maybe 25 sells. What happened to the rest of them? Well, we own them. We don't know what happened to them. Questions to ask a financial planner. Are there any here in this room? I hope you are. I'm not here to knock anybody. I'm not. In Martinsburg, like every city, there are good financial planners. A lot of people need help to figure it out. As we said before, nobody knows nothing. It's not as complicated as many people think, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't get a little help if you need it. Questions to ask. How long have you been doing it? Horrible for a young kid starting, but that's the way it goes. We'd like to see 5 years. Minimum of 3. Do you have any particular certifications? Are you a certified financial planner? If you're not, doesn't make you stupid. Doesn't make you bad. It's just a plus. Where do you get your information to talk to me about bonds and stocks? Where do you get yours? Barron's? Got it. Wall Street Journal? Have it. Investors Business Daily? Got it. New York Times? Got it. Bunch of newsletters. Read them. What do I need you for? How good is your research department? What's the track record of those stock recommendations in the last 12 months from your research department? You know all these reports you get? How have they done? This is not a knock on financial planners. It's a matter of empowerment and independence. You're taking the lead. They'd like to think, some financial planners, they're doing you a favor. Excuse me, know me, know you. Empowerment and independence. And the more you know, the better off you're going to be. No, I don't want to meet you, and I don't want you to come to my house, because then I can't get rid of you. I want to see where you do your business. What kind of a joint are you working in? Is it nice and it looks substantial? Okay, good. All right. I want to see. Financial planners love us, as you can imagine. Phone solicitation. Thank you for calling.
Well, thankfully, they don't do that so much anymore.
Because of the no-call list, but they get around it sometimes. The bottom line is this. The rap on small investors is that we just don't understand this stuff. And we don't understand what to be buying and when. And we don't know when to get out. And we don't know the scams. Yeah, we do. We at least started today, and many of you are past today. We've covered some basic common stuff and some not so common stuff. But as I go back to my first two quotes, nobody knows nothing. Conviction is the luxury of those on the sidelines. There are tough times ahead of everybody. I'm telling you right now. I have nothing to gain. Daria and I have nothing to gain by telling you. We tell you from the heart. We're here because we want to be here. Take control. Nobody cares about your money and your future the way you do. And don't take any you-know-what from anybody. We usually charge $1 per question. We're going to go 95 cents. Yes, sir.